let's queer up religion. Pope Francis's historic approval of blessing to same-sex couples, but it's not marriage. And a major development for Catholic LGBTQ plus couples, Pope Francis has approved the blessing of same-sex unions. The new rule was included in a declaration issued Monday by the Vatican's Office of the Doctrine of the Faith and signed by Pope Francis. For the first time, it allows priests to bless same-sex couples. However, the declaration does not change the traditional doctrine of the Church about marriage. According to Cardinal Víctor Manuel Fernández, prefect of the Office of the Doctrine of Faith, there is no liturgical rite that could be confused with the marriage sacrament. The Church still maintains that marriage can only be between a man and a woman. The document says the blessing should not be fixed ritually by ecclesial authorities to avoid any confusion with marriage. Fernandez says the decision to grant same-sex unions is a blessing, is based on the pastoral vision of Pope Francis, and describes the change as a real development. The Reverend James Martin, a prominent American advocate for LGBTQ plus Catholics, hails the decision as a marked shift. Since becoming Pope, Francis has endeavored to make Catholicism more welcoming to LGBTQ plus people, despite church doctrine that still describes homosexuality as a sin. All I can say is too little, too late. Mm-hmm. And I only approach this personally as somebody who was raised Catholic, and certainly am not a Catholic at any point in this part of my life. But for those who have faith out there, who are believers in Christianity and Catholicism and other institutional religions, if it brings them solace and peace, great. But as far as organizations go, they have discriminated against women, against minorities, against gay people, mm-hmm. for little over 2 centuries. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, they have used their tendencies and their points of view there to cover up major crimes and sins within mm-hmm. the institution mm-hmm. itself. Mm-hmm. So again, I don't fault anyone who has any solace that they get out of the church, but this is just water off a duck's back for one particular man at one particular time. And it's unfortunate because I think it will give people the appearance, it will give the appearance that the church is more accepting than it actually is. And I just simply don't see that.
I tend to agree with you, but I also like the idea that the church is able to move with this current pope. But I see the problem coming from a different angle, which is the evangelical community in the United States already believes that Catholics aren't Christians. And this is just going to be another way for them to say, look, here's another group that we can say isn't really a Christian group, isn't really part of who our values are or what we want, and is going to more solidly align them against the rest of us, the rest of the country. And so I can see issues arising from that, that zealotry, yeah.
That's an angle that I hadn't thought of. Yeah, Jamal?
Well, I see it from a perspective of this makes me wonder. People who for years have followed this doctrine, now seeing it change so rapidly with the way society is changing, parents who have put their gay or queer child out of the house, grandparents and such or families who have sat with not accepting the marriage of their queer or gay child or trans child. Now all of a sudden, you have this rapid switch, this change in tone. What are they saying to themselves now about their relationship and where they are in their relationship with these gay individuals that they have outcasted for so long? And now whether or not they're moving with the social change or whether they're under pressure to move, what is this saying to those people? What are these people saying to themselves right now? Like that, especially moving into the Christmas season, like they hit it right at the holiday season. So they,
Well, maybe it'll quiet for the short term. Maybe it'll quiet the crazy uncle at dinner next week.
It may quiet the crazy uncle,
I'm grasping here, person. I'm grasping here.
But for the gay person now entering into this situation, it's like, now what did y'all have to say all those years? You know, it begs the question, like, what is going to happen?
I would like to hear what the little old Catholic grandmother thinks. You know, the little old Irish or Italian Catholic grandmother. What's her take on this?
The ones that said the Pope is never wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, this is to me like a, you know, bless your heart type motion, because it's like, well, you can't really get married, but we bless you anyways. And it's just, again, it's another statement to say you're less than. You're not equal to everyone else. You don't deserve to have the same love and relationship as everyone else in the church. And you know, it's like, it's almost, yes, it's a step forward, but it's so backhanded. It's so backhanded.
Yeah.
And so I don't see it as...
It's the Southern blast.
Exactly. And it's saying like, you know, like we welcome, you know, we want to bless everyone, probably because we want you to stay members of the church and we want you to still give money to us. Sure. But please don't come here and get married, because no, that's not good enough.
And their philosophy has not changed. The philosophy of hate the sin but love the sinner is still the philosophy. So that they're the ones. It was great seeing the ick shirt in the last piece, because they're the ones who get sexual about this whole thing. They actually look at gay people and they think about sex acts as opposed to simply thinking about two people being together, which is interesting. One last thought is just that it's very interesting that this came out now, because 2 weeks ago, the Pope actually ousted the most conservative either archbishop or cardinal.
No, it was a cardinal.
Cardinal from his apartment in Rome, and so he was actually put out. It must have been in the planning and everything for this to happen.
It is possible that it was tied to this, because you don't lose that perch for just anything. But you know, I'm going to take a moment here to play devil's advocate. I've been waiting all day to say that. I know. I'm going to take a moment to play devil's advocate. I too was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic high school, and I see this as actually too little too late. I mean, perhaps I'm not coming back to the church. You know, that ship has sailed for me. But in a 2 millennia old organization, this is incredibly rapid change. He's been Pope for 10 years and has done more to acknowledge our existence in a positive way. You say hate the sin but love the sinner. But he's also said quit judging. You know, he said, who am I to judge? Which is basically telling all the rest of us, if I'm not going to judge, you're not going to judge. So I would say he's probably the most, especially considering he followed Ratzenberger, you know, who was incredibly conservative. He's, in my opinion, a refreshing breath of fresh air. He reminds me of Madonna. My gosh. Guess what we're talking about next, guys? He reminds me of President Obama, who in 2008 was for civil unions, but not for marriage. And by the 2012 election. So I just feel that if Pope Francis was a vampire, we'd probably have this within the next 20 years or so. So here's hoping. But I do want to read a comment from a group called Catholic Allies from my hometown, Indianapolis, and they're a group of heterosexual people, Catholics, that support their LGBTQ plus, including the T, plus brothers and sisters. And Danielle Weiss said yesterday, it is a huge shift, and says, quote, it goes into redefining blessings as something that should be accessible to all people and reminds us that we're all sinners and yet still worthy of receiving blessings. So I take Danielle's point to heart, and I think that we're moving in the right direction. Is it where we want to be? Are we at the top of the mountain? No. Are we at base camp? Maybe.
I mean, I'm not Catholic, so.